Hey guys, so I wanted to just come on and briefly talk about the Philadelphia incident that just ended and Maurice Hill. And I'm going to take a different sort of take on this, a sort of what we can learn from this take. And I'm going to say some things that are going to be controversial. I am almost positive nobody else is going to say this. The thing is, I really don't care about the um, the shootout. Hi, Derek. I don't care about the shootout. I don't care that it lasted 7 hours. Um, I don't care about any of those things. But what was really fascinating to me is I was pretty sure with all of the trouble and how the block was shut down and people were, trapped in their homes, and it was the whole issue with the children at the daycare, and the police were having such difficulty. I was positive he's a folk hero to some. Well, I'm going to get to that, Derek, because I can see how he is a quote unquote folk hero. I'm not for drugs, right? I'm not for selling drugs, especially within the community. I'm not for giving each other debilitating things. I really don't care about Maurice Hill. But something I think that we can definitely learn from this is that one individual, because right now it's just one individual, was able to divert and hold off that many police officers. One individual was able to be a big problem for Philadelphia. One person. One person. I always hear people when they talk about, hi Cassandra, I always hear people when they talk about revolutionary action, when they talk about pushing back against unjust systems. The argument that I get heavily, especially when I do my cognitive revolution series and when I do series on revolutions, and when I'm in on panels, the one thing people are always saying to me is, well, they have so many guns, they have so much technology, the little person would never win, it's such a big adversary. And when I see situations like this, it makes me laugh because I'm like, he was one person, y'all. One person. One human being was able to hold off all of those police officers for 7 hours, was able to upset an entire community, was able to have the entire nation's focus on him, just one person. So um, sometimes I feel like we feel that some things are insurmountable, right? I think propaganda, I think a life in a system where we are really taught that, government is all powerful or that abusive forces are all powerful and there's nothing that you can do to combat them. And y'all, I'm not telling you guys to go out and get the revolution popping. I'm just saying it's some food for thought, right? It's just some food for thought that one individual was able to do all that. And white people show us this all the time. And I'm using white people because when there are mass shootings, when things normally pop off that shut down whole cities, it's because one crazy, kid has grabbed a gun and shot up, his school or gone to a public place and killed a bunch of people. And I don't condone that behavior at all. But what I will say is that one individual can do a lot of damage, just one person. Imagine the damage that 10 people would do. Imagine the damage that 20 or 100 or 1,000. The thing is that I think the reason police and authorities are so unprepared for these situations is they really don't expect anything to pop off. They really don't have the expectation that anybody's going to do anything like that. They don't actually know how to handle it, which I find to be really fascinating. And so when I hear these arguments from people about we stand zero chance of ever accomplishing revolution, that that's a pipe dream, that, the people are in complete subjection and at the mercy of the government and things like that. When I hear people talk like that, I think of situations like this. I just think of, situations where one person is this much trouble. I mean, people were speculating how he still had bullets. Like he's been shooting for hella long, just one dude. They couldn't bring in one person. It took them a work day to control one individual. Now, I'm not going to say that, hey, Cass, I'm not going to say that um, he's a great individual or anything like that. I'm just saying that when we talk about revolutionary action, this starts with our mental state, right? And our mental state prevents any sort of physical revolution from happening. Did you do a real time video about it yesterday? You guys should go over to Derek's channel and watch that. I hope Demarius is doing well too, Derek. Demarius is his beautiful daughter. Hey, Misfit. When we have thoughts about revolutionary action, I find the biggest barrier to real revolution, whether that be social revolution, whether that be socio-political revolution, which is a change in political structure and social structure. When we talk about social, political, or social revolution or political revolution, the first argument, the first mental barrier that we have is, can we even do it? Do we have the power to do it? Do us with sticks and stones have the power to fight back against a system that has, tanks and an army? That's the first thing that is the pushback. The real reason nobody wants to do anything, nobody's trying to get anything to pop off. Nobody's really trying to make moves like that. But at the same time, one drug dealer was barely able to be handled by an entire city's police force. So people are not as, we are not as helpless as everybody would like to think. Hi, Kenny. We are not as incapable of revolutionary action. We're not as incapable of engaging in a social political revolution as people think. This fool was tripping out over a warrant and selling drugs. People with a sense of purpose about them, who are on a mission that is more noble, who are on a mission to correct social injustice and to usurp a system that is abusive and violent and racist, should be able to accomplish more. That's all that I took from this situation. Honestly, all that I took from this situation is, I don't want to hear anybody else say, we cannot do this thing. I don't want to hear anybody else talk about the weapons anybody has, how we could never win. I don't want to hear anybody else say it. You have too many sole individuals out here getting it popping. You have too many people out here for stupid stuff as singular individuals accomplishing a lot. You'll have one individual go kill 50 people, go injure 51 person. You have one person who a whole police force can't manage to take down. He had to give himself up. Y'all, it's not like they went in there. It is not like they went in there and stopped him. He had to surrender. He was shutting down a whole portion of a city, one drug dealer. Somebody who's not worth shit, not about shit, had no political message, nothing. One person. So why is it so hard for us to believe that revolution is possible? That's all that I am taking from this. I think this should make us think. If one drug dealer pissed off about a warrant, could accomplish this, why isn't actual revolution for a purpose that is noble possible? Why is that such a mental, gulf that we have to leap over to even conceptualize? Hey, George Macon, did he save your life, George? I'm really curious, y'all. If one drug dealer is this much trouble, how much would an organized revolution, how much trouble would an organized revolution be? Even strategically, y'all, and this is all hypothetical. Like Irene's not trying to start the revolution, but just follow me here. He had no strategy. What I took from that situation is that they are very cautious in places that are extremely public. They are very cautious in cities. We can use the fact that the authorities are only willing to move a certain way in a highly populated area. And by we, I mean the hypothetical S, y'all. That could be an advantage in a revolution. To understand, if anything, we should be watching those tapes back and listening to the news reports as strategy for how they handle things like that in a highly populated area, because their weakness and understanding their weakness and their inability to cope with one individual and the confusion that was surrounding that really is a strategic move. Cells in populated areas could really accomplish something because they're limited to how they're willing to move. They really don't know what to do. We act like everybody's super flippin' trained for this. Again, nobody be out there talking about Irina's trying to kick off the revolution. I'm just saying, y'all, one drug dealer. They could not handle one individual. He had to turn himself in. But the revolution can't happen? Say what? Well, I don't think many blacks should be laughing and gloating at police, though, Derek. Because quite frankly, I mean, and Cassandra, I want to address what you just said. Wow, a 30-year prison sentence? That's impressive, George. I'm so glad that you're free. But this is what I will say. Um, I don't think black people should be gloating because he didn't do shit for us. The only thing that man did was prove that revolution is possible. That's the only thing he proved to me. I'm not for people peddling drugs. I'm not saying he was peddling drugs to our community, but I'm not really pro drugs. Drugs to me are a weapon. The only interest I have in drugs are giving them to my enemy. That's the only interest I have in drugs. Can I get my enemy hooked on drugs so that their people cannot think right or act right or focus or be constructive? That is my only personal interest in drugs. To me, drugs are a weapon. I would never want to see a black person doing drugs. Ever. But if I had an enemy, I would be giving them all the drugs. Everything. You can have coke. You can have meth. You can have heroin. I want you to do all the drugs. If you're my enemy, I'm not trying to see people I'm trying to build with high as hell. So this drug dealer is irrelevant to me. The only thing he has shown me, I don't take anything else from that man. Um, this is what I would say. Going back to what Cassandra was saying, can we get all the black men out of prison first? That's about 8 million of our population. Um, this is what I will say. In a revolution, anything is possible, right? Hypothetically. In a revolution, anything is possible. I watched some footage on what's her name? I Am Aloho. She had a brief piece of footage from China on her channel the other day. where a police officer, because they're having rioting over there, was attempting to take down one individual, and a mob of civilians with no weapons beat him up and took his weapons. And all of them and the person got away. That's what I'm talking about. That's some shit that makes sense to Irene. If you want to talk about, pardon my French, things that make sense to me, that makes sense to me. Okay? The people won in that clip. It was so bad that when the police, his compadres, other police officers came in, they were trying to protect him. It went from crowd control to protecting each other because the crowd wasn't having it. Don't lay hands on not one individual. We outnumber you. And the thing I also want people to realize is, even though we are a minority population, for example, Black people, for example, let's say if Black people were going to have a revolution, for example, hypothetically, okay, if the people were going to have a revolution, and I also want to say this to people, because Derek is bringing up people being in jail. I don't think every Black person in jail needs to be free. There are some pedophiles locked up. There are some rapists locked up. Like, there are some, just because somebody's Black doesn't mean they need to not be in jail. Okay? So, I mean, just, I'm not for mass incarceration, but I'm also like, some people are a problem. But see, for me, I would kill people like that. Like, if you're a pedophile, I would murder you. We wouldn't need jails, quite frankly, in a world ran by me. Jails would not be necessary because some people wouldn't live. So we don't need to lock them up. But that's like a whole nother conversation. Anyway, if Black people were, for example, hypothetically, supposed to have a revolution, we're about to have a revolution, okay? If Black people were going to have a revolution, hey, One Love, then, hypothetically speaking, we could cause a bit of an uproar. We don't have to, simply because we are the minority. We would not have to be concerned about the majority because everybody's not a fighter. Did we not see this? That's something else we can learn from this situation. This one individual was outnumbered. But the thing is that everybody in that environment is not a fighter. Most people are stand-byers, right? They're stand-byers. They're going to stand by while the fighting is being done and just try to stay safe and out of the way. See, the numbers get a lot smaller then. And again, I just keep pointing to all these rogue individuals who aren't about crap, who aren't doing anything for any cause, causing all these problems. Let some people get organized and see what they can accomplish. Hey, Mark. Basically, Derek said this is a case of a motivated dude thumbing his nose to authority. Went about it the wrong way, still honorable. I mean, who can determine what going about it the wrong way is? I mean, I don't promote violence. He did what he thought he had to do. I think to engage in all those shenanigans for no reason does not make sense to me. I'm glad he did it because he just demonstrated for us all that revolution is possible. They would not even know what to do. Nobody's expecting anything. This is America. Okay? They expect us to do nothing. That's why every time one or two people do something, they have no idea how to handle it. They don't exactly excel in controlling stuff. The thing that they have great control over are our minds. And so I just hope that we all can move past the mental state that revolution is not actually possible. I think a lot of reasons that socio-political revolution does not occur is because we have a mental block that says that they will snuff it out before it ever happens. I think we have never been aggressive enough. What this man did was highly aggressive. It went from 0 to 100 real quick. It was knock, 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 and he went to 100. And it caught him off guard. See, our problem is every time somebody tries to have a revolution in America, we want to spend 10 years having a conversation. We don't want to walk around with guns. We want to be on television having conversations. We want to talk to the news. We want to try to change a law. Dude, that's not a revolution. Okay? The people who accomplish things are the ones that are going 0 to 100. You thought we were way over here, and the next thing you know, there's a shootout. That's why they could not control him. They were put on the defensive. They were on the defensive. They were really at the mercy of one man. He's one individual, y'all. How many people got hurt? Not just the police officers that got shot, but they were so flamboozled, they were hurting themselves. There were police officers that were injured, and their injuries had nothing to do with him shooting them. They were falling and stuff. They were so disheveled. You had police officers getting injured just getting from point A to point B because their mental state was so jacked up because of one individual. These are the people that the revolution would be up against if they didn't join, hypothetically. You know what I'm saying? Cassandra said it's not impossible to do, but it's not as easy as starting a riot. I don't know that it's not. Look what's happening in China. Look what just happened in France. I kind of think it is that easy. I think there has to be organization, right? There has to be organization. But I think the biggest part of revolution is kind of starting a riot. That's kind of what it is. It's kind of like, hypothetically, it's kind of like having an actual cause and purpose. And it's like a landslide. A few rocks start rolling, but then there's a conversation that lets people know, join us because this is what we're about. And it ends up being just a giant riot because war is a lot like that. People think that war is super organized, and at the highest levels, war is very organized. But at the grassroots level, at the boots on the ground level during a war, soldiers do a lot of dirt that the upper levels have nothing to do with. That's why you hear about a lot of atrocities. You hear about a lot of violence. You hear about soldiers exploiting locals. And you hear about all these things because the boots that are on the ground essentially are rogue. They have their orders, but as they're killing people and doing what they need to do, they're really rogue. And a revolution is no different. There will be a purpose, but see, that's why at the end of every revolution, there is a period of time where things are very much in chaos because everything has to be reorganized. Revolutions often are just giant riots that are started with a purpose. We hate this. This must change. This political system must change. This social system must change. Then people become violent and fight against it, or I will say they use coercive force. Let's say that, coercive force. Let's use some white terms. So nobody says I'm trying to say anything because it's all hypothetical. But revolutions use coercive force. And coercive force is very effective. That's why nobody wants to do anything. Because you will be coercively forced to stop. You know what I'm saying? You're worried about some coercive force being used against you. That's true, Sexy Runa. Hey, Joe. But that's all that I can take from this situation. I mean, and I know this is not going to be the take that most people are gonna take from this because I don't really care about the dude. I don't really care about any of this. But I just find it very fast. All it made me think about was a revolution. I'm just going to be honest. When I heard that this was one man, the only thing I really cared about was like, oh man, one person did all that. Imagine what 5 or 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 people would do. Just imagine. He's one person. Basically shut a city down. Now get this, y'all. Okay. This is my hypothetical. Just follow me here in the hypothetical world. One person who is part of a revolution does some mess like he did and diverts an entire police force damn near to one area of a city while 50 or more people in another part of that city engage in something else. How often can the forces be split? If there are two major incidents going on in a city, how much leeway does that give other cells to move in other areas of the city to confiscate weapons, resources, things like that? How many times can an individual city split their police force up? What is the reaction time of the Federal Reserve? Now, again, this is just hypothetical. I mean, this is the mess I was thinking when this was going on. I was like, dang, there are a lot of police officers there. A lot of energy is being diverted. What if something got popping in a different part of the city? What if there were two locations where major police resources were needed? How does that open up and make a vulnerability in other part of the city? What if this was happening in multiple cities at once in a state or in multiple states? How much divisionary strategies of power can the system really withstand? Because one individual diverted a lot of resources for a long period of time. I mean, these are just thoughts. These are thoughts that I had. Like, honestly, this is just the stuff I was thinking when all this was going on. I was like, man, this is very fascinating to me. Like, we're all focused on the wrong thing. We're focused about this drug dealer. I'm focused on the playing out. It was like watching a war simulation. It really was to me. It was like being in a military classroom and watching a simulation where the goal was to understand if it took this much to handle one person, how could the terrible way that they handled it, how could somebody exploit that strategically in a hypothetical revolution? I'm just saying, y'all. I think sometimes we get so caught up in just, when you stare at a television set. I didn't watch any of this on TV, or anything like that, or on the internet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I read about it, and then I wanted to see a visual. I listened to about 5 minutes of it, pit some stuff, skip through because I got to it when the live broadcasts were like uploaded fully because they weren't live broadcasting anymore, and skip through it. And that's really all that I took from it, me personally. I think sometimes, television gets us in a hypnotic state where we're not actually analyzing what is going on the screen. We're not really thinking. We are just assimilating information, and there's no strategic thought going on in our minds about what we are seeing. But as you guys know, I have a problem with passive experiences. So when I was trying to get caught up with all this. And honestly, I wasn't even going to bother with it. I saw that George was doing a live on it, so I knew that it was going on. And then my man was like, "Dang, this shootout situation is still going on." And by that time, it was nighttime, and I was like, "My goodness, George was covering this like earlier in the day," and so that prompted me to go ahead and look it up and check it out. But once I did, all I took from it was, where is the revolution? Because our adversary is not that amazing. Like, it's not doing, like, there are a lot of weaknesses. I could hypothetically think up 15 strategies just literally watching that. I don't know. I'm not going to stay on here forever. That is just some food for thought. Now, I am going to be doing a live. I'm not going to really start my lives up until next week. But I'm gonna say this. Um, Heads up. I recently saw something that literally enraged me. It takes a lot to make me angry. I was actually so mad when I watched this, and it's going to be a conversation on another country that has provided reparations to their Black population. And it's a conversation about octoroons. Okay, so I'm about to offend a lot of people. Just remember that I'm Gullah, okay? And so we often use some terminology that is considered offensive to many people. And I've had people really complain about this, but I'm going to use the terminology anyway because I think that this terminology was really needed in this conversation. You had mulattoes, quadroons, octoroons, and moving on, claiming the reparations. So you would have a full on blonde haired, blue eyed person who had a great Black grandparent getting reparations and attacking the actual Black people for saying you are white. So I want to sit down and watch this whole like meeting with you guys because I get a lot of heat for saying that mixed people are not Black. And I want to show you guys a real life rabbit hole, something that's going on in the real world with Black people and reparations. And I want to show you the real life erasure of Black people and how quickly these octoroons and quadroons turned on Black people. And what was scary is that the mulattoes in the group were inclined to want to turn too if they were lighter skinned. Because, mixed people come in different colors. So, for example, you guys know that all my boys are the same color as me, except for one. And my daughters are very light. So some mixed people just look Black. Like we as Black people would know they were mixed, but a person who's not Black would likely think that they're just a Black person, right? So it was interesting to me because, an octoroon is going to be basically a white person, right? It was interesting to me how the lighter skinned mulattoes were very much inclined to side with the octoroons who are basically like 1/18th, 1/16th, 1/24th Black, literally full on white people. They were willing to side with them on the basis of saying it was colorism. And they were actually accusing the Black people of being like the colonizers. When I tell you I've never been so enraged in my, like, I was pissed. I was pissed. And I think I might bring some of my kids on in this discussion because I also think those of us who have mixed people in our family or are parents of mixed people, we need to be very specific. If you ask my children right now if they are Black, they will tell you they are half Black. And I teach them to have the utmost respect and never circumvent anything that Black people do. But I want you guys to hear when a mixed person is raised properly, in a black family, how they differ from what the hell these mixed people were doing. Because these people literally turned on the black people. They turned on them, y'all. I've never seen, I was so disgusted. And what disgusted me more is in a room with like 60 people, there might have been five black faces. Everybody else was mixed. Everybody else had an admixture. And they were trying to prove their blackness to access reparations. And so I don't care about reparations. Y'all know, like, I'm not with the reparation shit. Like, I will help with reparations. I will do everything in my power to support the reparations movement. But, I'm on some other stuff. I'm on some, why am I going to ask for some money that I'm trying to make obsolete anyway type stuff? Why am I trying to engage a government that I think needs to be, we need a political revolution anyway? Like, so reparations is so contradictory to the place I'm trying to see us go. But I will never work against our people, right? But in the context of reparations, this conversation brought up something else, which is our desire to turn everyone black, backfiring in our faces. And I think nothing like a real world example of something that is going on right now. I think after an hour of watching these people talk, a lot of people are going to have a thought process that is closer to mine. So I literally I could rant about this. I was so enraged. So look out for that next week. I will be doing that like probably Saturday or Sunday of next week. Um, in my family, all of the women tend to be born as Leos and Virgos. So there are a lot of birthdays this month. And so I've been, you guys know I've traveled. I just got back. I'm traveling again and I'll be vlogging it. I'm traveling again at the beginning of next month. And I also am taking my daughter out because her birthday, she's a Leo too, next week. So on Saturday or Sunday of next week is when I plan to do this particular live. I'll make sure I give a heads up. But when you talk about something that enrages you, like I was so angry. I'm still angry. And I feel like this is going to teach us a lesson because this is not a hypothetical. This is something real that is going on right now. This is a struggle that Black people in this country are having, not this country, but the country we're going to look at, are having right now. And I want us to really have a discussion. I want it to be like a discussion because I want to look at this from every aspect because they have the history of sometimes mixed people being created because of rape and intentional diluting of the Black population. There were people who voluntarily dated out. So they have the same, very similar history to what we have going on here in the United States. And the Black people there have gotten reparations. They have gotten their reparations. And so I think we need to really look at this. And you have, like I said, full on white people. And I mean, these people are white. When you guys see these people, y'all are going to be pissed off too. I mean, and the way that they were so freaking disrespectful with your white ass. And some of these mixed people were talking about, you know how Black people know each other? Like we know and we acknowledge each other when we see each other. So one of these mixed people were talking about the acknowledgement that we have for each other and looked at this blonde hair, blue eyed man and said, when I saw you, I knew you were one of us. I was like, no, that's the whiteness in you two that recognize each other. No Blackness recognized Blackness in this white man. That's when your white sides are speaking to each other. Y'all, I was so, oh my gosh, let me just, I'm not even gonna start ranting. You guys, we will watch this with each other next week. And you guys could be pissed off with me because there's no way all of us cannot be mad. And it's not just for Black people, it's for mixed people too. And I'm going to see how many, if any, of my children I can bring in on the conversation because I want to have mixed people involved in this conversation. And I really want to involve my children, even some of not my really young children, but some of my middle-aged children, because I want to really show how we have to responsibly deal with mixed people and where we need to have their minds at to prevent these sorts of problems, because otherwise mixed people can be a real problem. And there's already mixed people existing, and I've talked about this in other videos. We're not going to outcast our family members and stuff. Like, that's not going to happen. But we need to get control over this thing, or we're going to be in the same position as these Black people in this country. So with that said, be prepared to be pissed off, because I know I'm still mad about it. And I'm mad talking about it pisses me off. I'm having like flashbacks. But with that said, again, with this situation, I think the thing that we really have to learn from this situation is the revolution is possible. And it's not only possible, it may be hella easy. Like, y'all, if we were all in a room alone after a pat down and a strip search, we could have a real conversation. That's how possible it is, hypothetically. So with that said, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.